Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Watch This Space with Rivada Networks. I'm Brian Carney, and my guest this week is Kelly Hayes, our head of cybersecurity. Kelly, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian.
So, Kelly, I'm not a cybersecurity expert, but I remember having a security conversation with the head of security at Rolex watches years ago, and I asked him how they safeguarded all the gold that they used to make the watches, and he leaned into me and said, "The first rule of security is we don't talk about security." Apologize for the accent.
That's
Um,
okay.
is that still true? Is that our attitude towards security? Tell me
No.
what your reaction to that is.
Besides the laugh of the excellent accent, I think, no, that's not the way that most people um, approach security these days, especially in the cyber realm. That type of attitude is called security by obscurity, and it's just been shown time and time again that it doesn't work. This is the reason why so many of the algorithms are open source, and why so much there's so many instances of open source software, because you have the ability to crowdsource and have essentially this almost infinite think tank take a look at software and algorithms, etc., and do their best to try and break them. And then when they do
Okay.
break them, they submit, essentially what they did, and people can fix it. So it just really, yeah, it just allows people, a wide variety of people, to take a look at things.
Okay, so if it's not security through obscurity anymore, what is the approach to cybersecurity that Rivada's taking?
Right. So I would say that it's methodical, and it is security by design. And then it's also by using the essentially what's considered the gold standard as far as certifications go. So using the
Okay.
best in class of recommendations, and then working to become certified, which allows you to be investigated essentially by an independent third-party auditor to make sure that you're doing everything that you should be doing and that you say that you're doing. And so this program specifically for commercial satellite communications is called IA-PRE. And this
Okay.
is, yes, and this is using a set of standards that are recommended by NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. It's a US-based organization. It's standards 800-53 running in high security mode. Um, it allows you, it's a framework that provides you with the decision points on which to make policies and procedures with respect to CIA, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
So not the Central Intelligence Agency.
No, no, not that CIA or the
Okay.
Culinary Institute of
Or the
America.
Culinary Institute of America. Yeah.
Yes. And so if
So
people,
sorry, say that again. Confidentiality,
integrity
integrity,
and availability.
and availability. Okay.
Right.
CIA.
Yes, and so there's this huge they're called security controls. I really think of them more as rules or requirements that talk about how you do access control, how you do authentication, how you do identity management, all the things
Okay.
that you think of when you think of cybersecurity. But it also takes care of the things that are associated with that availability, which I think a lot of times cybersecurity folks tend to not pay as much attention to, but it's all about making sure that you have the data when you need it at the time that you need it. So IA-PRE and NIST 800-53 also spends a lot of time talking about program management, change management, incident response, continuity of operations, how often you back up and how often you test your backups.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and I assume that these rules or these certifications, I mean, they're only as good as the weakest link, right? So
Absolutely.
it doesn't do that much good to kind of totally secure the network if we're not securing kind of our organization itself. So we have to apply these same rules to our kind of internal organization as much as we do to the constellation that we're building. Is that fair to say?
That is absolutely fair to say. And I love that you brought that up because what you're really talking about is supply chain, the security of the supply chain and supply chain management. So, I think that one of the worst things that could happen is essentially somebody would hack into our business system and essentially create another person and surreptitiously have that fake person log in and put a backdoor into the Outernet. That would be catastrophic. So just as we are ensuring through IA Pre that all of our suppliers, vendors, contractors, et cetera, are as secure as we are the biggest part of the supply chain because Rivada Space Networks is the one building the Outernet.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. So when we talk about the outer net, right, we're talking about this global constellation, and one of the features of that constellation that we like to tout is that communication travels, from end to end, any 2 points on the globe, without touching the outer net, without touching the internet, without touching third-party infrastructure, or traveling kind of over uncontrolled or perhaps untrustworthy equipment. And can you just say a word about the role that system architecture plays in security and cybersecurity, and maybe if there are challenges that poses or advantages, tell me how that system architecture fits into the cybersecurity strategy, if you would.
Oh, absolutely. So I think that you said something very interesting that I'd like to key on before I answer your direct question, and that
Sure.
is not traversing the internet. So don't get me wrong, I love the internet. I mean, mainly because I think it was created so people could share cat memes. But in the end, the internet is kind of like the wild, wild west. It's this
Okay.
amalgamation of equipment and infrastructure and services and configurations, essentially that are controlled by who knows. Right? There's certainly every effort is made to make sure that pieces are as secure as possible. But in the end, there are hackers out there are nation states, there are people that are doing bad things. Okay. And so one of the key tenets to the Outernet is that we don't touch the internet. So you truly have point-to-point access through our user terminals that does not traverse that internet. Okay? Now, aside from the IA pre-compliance that we're working on, and again, that applies to our company, the Outernet, and then all of our suppliers and vendors. We really have security by design for the Outernet. And so there's uh, there's 6 things that I'd like to point out.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to be glancing here at my cheat sheet, okay?
No,
Um,
that's fine.
yeah, but some of the things that I'm really impressed with, first of all, is really about beam forming and pointing. So because we don't have a gateway, because we're doing user terminal to user terminal, that allows you to have a very narrow beam that's sent to these UTs that are in different locations. Because the beam is so narrow, that makes it harder to detect, which makes it harder to block, which makes it harder to jam. So I
Okay.
don't think that this is security by obscurity. It just means that there's a very small hole that people need to get through instead of having a big footprint.
Right. So would that fall into the subject of reducing the attack surface then?
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
know these words, but I don't always, not sure I always understand what they mean, but we can think
Right.
of that as reducing the available attack surface to somebody who might try to interdict or jam those beams.
Well, absolutely. It just means that you have to be a lot closer than you would if you are, say, next to a ground station or a gateway.
Right.
Okay, I would love to come back to the idea of attack surface in a little bit, but
Okay.
yeah, the other items that why I think the Outernet is going to be superior is that we have beam hopping capabilities. So the system can dynamically switch between transition beams in an unpredictable pattern, which again reduces the likelihood of interference, eavesdropping, etc. We have interference detection as well, which means that we can leverage beam directivity and the proliferated constellation to find mitigations to that.
So,
We
sorry,
have,
let me just stop you just to clarify one thing. When we're talking about these beams, we're talking about the the ground to satellite and satellite to ground link,
yes,
right? We're not talking about the
absolutely.
intersatellite
Correct.
links at this
Mhm,
point. We're talking about a radio frequency link
mhm.
in our case in the Ka band between the satellite and Earth and between Earth and the satellite. Okay, sorry, I
Absolutely.
just
Yes.
want to
No,
make
no,
sure
no,
I
that's,
understand.
no, it's a great distinction to make. Okay.
Okay,
We also have adaptive modulation and coding. So when signal degradation occurs, either because of jamming, weather, anything that could happen, it allows you to
okay,
switch to more robust, lower modulation schemes that are harder to disrupt and intercept. Our telemetry and tracking is based again on IEEE requirements. And so it's post-quantum secure encryption,
all
and
right,
it has standardized pseudo randomization included to obfuscate traffic patterns. So again, harder to break. Okay. And of course, lastly, is that all of our traffic will be encrypted end to end. So user terminal to user terminal. We as Rivada will never see the user traffic. We only see the encrypted portion. Okay. And it
got it.
doesn't go anywhere else, right? It stays on our network. Okay. And the encryption algorithms that we're using are really the highest standards within NIST and FIPS. And these are all the open source algorithms that have been approved by the National Security Agency, by GCHQ, et cetera.
Okay, so I just so I understand what you mean about the encryption,
Mhm,
because our users will control their own user terminals.
mhm.
The user data is effectively being encrypted before we get it and being decrypted after we deliver it. So
Absolutely.
we literally can't access that data even if we wanted to, right? It's like you can't spill the beans on something you don't know. We
Correct.
have no access to what they are sending and receiving. Is that fair to
Absolutely.
say?
That is absolutely fair to say. Mhm.
And because our customers control both endpoints, right? It's not going to a gateway that is under ours or somebody else's control. Um, they don't have to worry about any of the intermediate steps because they effectively the whole data path is kind of in their control, right? We control the inter-satellite routing. That's a subject for another episode, perhaps. But um, again, we don't actually know, and we can't know what we're sending. Is that right?
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely correct. Yeah. In my mind, it's the equivalent of Signal. People talk about the app Signal and that
Right.
it's encrypted end to end and Signal has no idea what they're sending. That's true. They don't. It's encrypted on the end devices. Okay. Um, so same idea here.
Okay.
Mhm.
Very cool. And if you have a satellite system that relies on gateways and that is sending its traffic over terrestrial fiber from the gateway to the endpoint, you can still have encryption, but and maybe this is, I don't know if this is a good use of the idea of an attack surface, but you're increasing the available attack surface because from that gateway to whatever the endpoint is, it's not traveling over this kind of um, self-contained network that the Outernet is, right?
No, that's absolutely correct. I mean, even if in the case of a traditional satellite communication system, even if the data is encrypted endpoint to endpoint, you don't necessarily I'm trying to think how to say this. Um, Crypto is really easy to mess up. How's that?
Okay,
And so, yes, and so you are not only relying on the fact that whoever is you're entrusting the encryption process to, that they have not messed up, okay? But you're also trusting that nobody along the path is able to do essentially traffic analysis to determine things like pattern of life or side channel attacks, etc.
got it. So, so that's your 6 points of security by design. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, 6 points
Um,
security by design.
okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And you mentioned IA pre it, and you mentioned NIST. Um, is IA pre that's a is that a U.S. government program? How would you describe what it is? Does it stand for something? Can
Yeah,
we
so
say a little bit more about it?
yes, I should have written down. I always forget what IE-PRE stands for. Um, but hopefully everybody that's watching this can just Google it.
It's okay. We can maybe we can look it up and throw it on screen or something. But
Okay,
is it a
so
thing
it's
that's overseen by the U.S. government? Where does
yeah,
it come from?
right.
Um,
So yeah, outstanding. So it's something run by the U.S. government, specifically administered by the U.S. Space Force, and this came out of the acknowledgement and need for essentially the US government to be able to contract for satellite bandwidth to be able to carry sensitive data. Okay, so the IA-PRE program was born. It is based on the NIST standards,
right.
800-53 high, and then something called the satellite overlay, which is another standard that applies specifically to the satellite links to make sure that they're secure. And it does require an independent third party audit to ensure that you're following all the rules, the intent and the letter of the law there. And becoming IA pre-compliant, aside from the bragging rights and of you just being able to say that you've met the gold standard, okay? Um, it allows the US government to, without any additional investigation, et cetera, contract with that company to carry national, I'm trying to remember the exact words, uh, national security information.
Okay.
Mhm.
But so presumably, if it's a requirement to offer commercial satellite communication services to the U.S. government, or at least to certain parts of the U.S. government, presumably this is a certification that other people in the satellite industry will be aiming at or trying to achieve as well, right? We're not going to be the only people in the world with IA-pre certification when our satellites go live.
Yeah, I believe that. Yes, I think that if a company wants to have the US government as a customer, I think that they will have to go the IA pre-certification route.
Okay. But
Yeah.
so in addition to that certification, we've got these elements of security by design
Mhm.
that that you just went through. We've got this end-to-end system architecture that avoids the use of gateways and keeps our customers' data on network and out of the prying eyes of hackers who may be lurking on the public internet. All those security by design features and the organizational security stuff that you also alluded to is there to make sure that somebody can't get inside our systems to intercept that data directly from us, even though it would be encrypted and you wouldn't necessarily be able to access it, assuming the encryption is done well and so on, and you haven't left fingerprints out in the open or something. Um, so as an organization, then it seems to me if we are and we are trying to build one of the most secure networks in the world and I've heard it said by Declan and others, right, that so the first kind of unified, truly global and ubiquitous communications network that's ever been built, right? We've never had a single network that spans the entire globe, that is equally accessible from any point on the globe, and
Mhm.
is sort of self-contained. And that itself is a security feature, but only to the extent that we as an organization are also, take our own cybersecurity extremely seriously, right? So I assume that part of your job, therefore, is to make sure that Rivada as an organization, I'm not trying to paint a target on our back, but you said security by obscurity is outdated anyway, right? So,
Mhm.
we have to not only build the most secure network in the world, but we have to, build a highly secure organization, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm so happy, since I joined this company, that people really understand that security is everybody's responsibility.
That's a great point. And I think we can leave it there, actually. Alice agrees. So thank you, Kelly, for joining Watch This Space, and thank you to our viewers for watching. And stay tuned. Watch this space, everyone. This has been Brian Carney and Kelly Hayes with Rivada Networks.
Thank you.